What's up, y'all? I'm De'Viar,
And it's Jasmine.
and this is Stories of the Streets.
As always, Stories of the Streets is sponsored by the New Black Collective, Black Scent, Change Waco, and Rogue Media Network.
And today we have another special guest for y'all. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Adam Moore. You want me to say a little bit about myself? Yeah. So I do a couple things around town. I'm the editor and founder of the Lost in Waco magazine, kind of arts and culture magazine in town. I also coordinate a local storytelling event called Analog. And so just kind of interested in and involved in some of the kind of local arts.
What's going on here? Going on in the city. We got a little taste of it. We got to work with Adam. He we got the opportunity to be in the most recent issue of Lost in Waco. Thanks again for that.
Hey, thank you guys. Yeah.
I know you've already gone into like why you started Lost in Waco and stuff like that. But for the listeners who don't know you, why did you get into Lost in Waco and Analog and stuff like that?
Yeah. So Lost in Waco started. Really, none of this was planned. It just kind of happened over time. So in 2015, I fixed up my dad's old kind of road bike, and I just started riding it around town, and just kind of for kind of stress relief, or just for something to do, and just started exploring Waco. I had lived in Waco for quite a few years already. I've been here since 1998. But really it just hadn't ever gotten out and explored the city in that kind of way. And you explore it differently on a bike. And I started just taking some photos, just on my phone. I didn't really think anything of it. And I was like, well, maybe I should start an Instagram account and start posting these photos. And so, one day I just posted the first photo. I was like, what should I call it? I don't know. And I put something like, I ride my bike in Waco. I get lost. I take pictures along the way, or something like that. And I called it Lost in Waco. And so I did that for a couple of years and kind of build up a following, and it really just changed the way that I saw the city to explore and see the city in that kind of way. And so on kind of another side of things, I started getting interested in kind of print publications, and I had kind of stopped doing the Instagram for the most part. And so I was like, well, what if we just kind of spun this off and did a magazine that also was kind of about getting lost in the city, exploring new areas of the city, maybe exposing some of what is not as often talked about in the city.
Wow.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as for Analog.
Yeah. So Analog, I guess what I have realized about myself without, like I said, doing these things and then realizing it afterwards is that I guess I'm interested in stories and storytelling, and because that's what Lost in Waco does in a lot of ways. But Analog, I had done some projects a number of years ago in Waco that did a little bit of personal storytelling, and I always thought like this is really something I'd love to do more of. And so a few years back, I was sitting in Pinewood and I was looking out at that little courtyard area that they have at Pinewood. And I was like, oh, that's the place to do it. I love it. Under the big oak tree there. I was like, I want to get people around there and just tell stories around a common theme. And so it's true personal stories from people's lives around a particular theme. So De'Viar, I know you've participated in that before. And so we just have different themes and invite kind of people who I think just are maybe interesting people who I've come across like on Instagram. Like mostly I like to invite people who I don't really know.
Yeah.
So like, I think I just reached out to you on Instagram. I was like, hey, I don't really know you, but maybe you'd be interested in doing this. And so that's how I've done it with most of the people. Yeah. And it's just been kind of a magical thing, the way that, and it's resonated with a lot of people. So
true. No, I definitely like that word magic, because it definitely, I get that feeling. Like it's a really, I don't know, just real calming, real just informative like thing to me, especially when I first like got on the Lost in Waco, because a lot of your pictures and stuff like that. I remember one you took of a house, and I think you like talked to the person who owned the house, and they told you a little about the history of it and stuff like that. And then when we were doing the Lost in Waco shoot, like you stopped at that building and were like, oh, you know what this building is? It used to be a temple and stuff like that. It just has all this like this history and knowledge. I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah, I forgot about that building.
Yeah, no, I was going through my camera. I was looking at stuff to try to figure out what I could like keep and delete. And I got all of it, already on my computer. And I came across that video when I was going through everything. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's when he's telling a story about the temple. And I was like, yeah, like that'll be a good episode. Like, this had to add on. Just because do you find these things out? Like, you just from being in Waco and stuff like that, how do you figure all this stuff out? Is it from talking to people, or is there like a Waco history database that we just don't know about?
Well, there are some people doing some cool stuff on Waco history. I know there's a Waco History Project or something like that. They have an app. I think it's maybe based out of Baylor somewhere, but they do some really cool stuff. But really, it's just kind of my own curiosity with that building. It was really just as I was riding my bike around, I came across that building, and it was just so weird because it had like multiple layers of like previous signs that had been on the side of the building, like paint that had been painted on there. And one of them was it's this building over on Elm. I guess it's on Elm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of not far from like the river, and it's the one that has like a little bit of a mural, and I think it had like a black cowboy on it maybe or something but that was like the mural, and then there was a lettering that said Planned Parenthood on it, and lettering that was really faint in the background that said like Muhammad Temple. It's like, that's weird. What is that? And so I found the address of the building, and I went on this website, which is can totally suck you in for hours, called newspapers.com, and you can search 100 years of Waco newspapers.
Oh,
and so I just put that address in there and was able to find out this information. Like, it used to be Nation of Islam temple, and it had like a couple articles about that in there, and I was like, wow, this is really fascinating. So it's kind of just curiosity and paying attention to what's around you, because there's like history all around us, and stories all around us, and people all around us that have their own stories. And so just trying to pay more attention to that, and I guess that's something that I've just grown interested in, and through Analog, through Lost in Waco, wanting to do more of that.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I've never heard of that. You said newspapers.com?
Yeah, I get stuck on there too.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of this.
I
That's
got
crazy.
there on accident. I was looking for something for Black History Month one year, and I was like, what are these articles? And they have like pictures and everything.
Yes.
And it's kind of cool. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta get off of here.
I feel like that's stuff that I wish we push to have normalized more. We don't really focus on our local history and the stuff that goes on locally enough. So I think you chose also kind of retroactively the perfect time to do this stuff. Like, social media right now is really big on people telling their own story. Like, everybody is the narrative, the narrator on their own story. So you essentially kind of just widespread that, between both Analog and Lost in Waco, because Lost in Waco isn't just, your Instagram account no more. You're actually focusing on people. Like, you did a story on Us, the Black Center, Black Collective, and then other people also, like musicians and stuff like that. And I think that's cool. That's really dope. We don't have a lot of people that are just taking time to do stuff like that, and just creating this real comfortable environment, to really just network and get to know each other, and just There's people 10 years from now to be like, oh yeah, I accomplished this because Adam Moore, and Lost in Waco. Like, that's a cool thing.
Oh, and I mean, you guys are a part of that too. I mean, what you're doing with the podcast. I think I love that. I'm just all about bringing on people to tell their stories that maybe we wouldn't otherwise hear. Yeah,
I got you. I appreciate you coming on too.
Oh, for sure.
Is there any like new Analog events that's planned? Do you have any the book 4 coming soon? Are we getting to book 4?
Yeah, so we're starting. So the Lost in Waco, the idea, at least for now, was to do it twice a year, and so we're starting to work on the next one, the fourth issue. Excited about that. We put out a magazine in a pandemic. We started a magazine in a pandemic, which is not the ideal scenario. I got the first issue of the magazine 20 boxes of magazines in my car a day or two before the world shut down in 2020.
Oh, wow.
And then the plan was to put them in local businesses. All the businesses were closed. It was not what we had planned.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years have been awesome, how it's all come together and worked. And I feel like we have a really good momentum and good thing happening I feel like there's a ton of potential with the magazine, but we're getting to this point where, to take the next step, we probably need some more help. And so I'm trying to kind of bring in some different people just to help with some of the administrative stuff that comes with running that, and so trying to do some of that right now as we start looking towards the next issue. As far as Analog, like I'm so bad about like scheduling them regularly. I love doing them so much. It's just one of my favorite things to do. But I don't have one on the calendar right now. I had been looking at planning one and it kind of fell through, and so then I need to pick it up again. Maybe get one going for February or something.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, do you have any other projects you're working on?
I mean, those are the big things right now. I always have like my problem is probably having like too many ideas in my head. I think you guys know that about yourselves too. And so, I'm always thinking about ideas and things I want to do. But of course, the challenge with that is like, you don't want to do too many things where it's all kind of watered down and you're not doing anything as well as you'd really like to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think, right now I'm trying to focus on those two things, which is a lot. Because, I work full time at Baylor, and, these are just side projects for me, things that really just kind of give me life outside of my, 8 to 5 job. And, I really I have a lot of ideas too for Analog. I really want to grow that. And I think there's just a lot of potential there. There's been so much, there's just been such a great response to it as far as people coming, people being involved in it. And so I want to do that more. Like I said, I haven't been good about getting that out there more often. But I'm excited about what Analog has. There are a couple of things I want to do. I want to start having occasionally some like guest hosts. So with Analog, the idea has always been like, I want to somehow bring in people to tell their stories, their true life stories. And hopefully it's a diverse, interesting mix of people. So if I'm just asking the people I know, well, then most likely it's going to be a lot of people who are kind of like me, and so I think that's a lot less interesting. And so my idea is how to like broaden that circle of people who are telling their stories at Analog is, well, what if I invite kind of hosts to come in, and then they are a part of inviting the guests for that night. And so hopefully it just like takes it a couple more steps removed from me, opening it up to more people who I don't know, who can come and tell stories, who can come and be a part of the event. So I'm wanting to do that, wanting to get that out into more locations. So, some of the events that we do are like big events with a lot of people, like the one you were at, like it was at Pinewood.
Almost didn't have enough room for everybody.
Oh man, I mean, it was so packed out there. It really, like, it was probably too many people, but I love that because it like felt like there was so much good energy in there, and like it felt good. But then we've done these smaller events that are like intentionally smaller, where either we do tickets or we do we like announce it like the day before or two. So it's just kind of this pop-up event.
Yeah.
And then that naturally just kind of means less people are probably going to come.
Yeah.
But I love like the intimacy of an event with like 30 people, because that's a much different feel to that than the one with 100 people.
Yeah.
Now, I really love them both, but so I'm wanting to do some more of those smaller events too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's a easier vibe, especially for people right now with everything going on with the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who, get turned off from, big, huge, like you have to be there events. So it's kind of a little harder to get people to go to that right now.
Yeah.
Which is weird because we never really shut down.
And that's been a challenge with Analog too. We didn't do an event for over a year. At the beginning, for that first year of the pandemic. And then we've done a couple of events since then, but it's just like, it looks like, okay, things are going much better. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my God, So it's tough.
Go ahead and draw it and put it back. Get your mask.
Yeah.
I think it's challenging for all of us. I know even just with us planning to do the photo shoots in the last issue of the magazine, everything is like frustrating and crazy right now.
Yes.
And it's a lot. And I always, I wondered, I didn't know that when the pandemic started, that's when you got the first print. So I'm just like, I don't know if I would have kept going. Like, I don't know if I would have kept going with the magazine, because it's like, that's kind of discouraging, and with what you're trying to do, like it's very hard. So I'm like, I commend you because I'm just like, no, I think I would have gave up, especially with like we saw the process of what it takes to do the magazine, and then you're working with different groups of people.
Yeah.
No. No, that's a lot. But I think it's great that you started that because a lot of people wouldn't have any space to tell their stories because no one was making space for them.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that because I know that nobody would have been like, hey, like we would have never got a call from the Waco one or anybody like, hey, all of y'all want to be on the same magazine spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a story about y'all. yeah, about y'all's groups and stuff like that.
But that would have never happened for us. I did one small interview with Kevin Tankersley.
Yeah.
He went to school with my dad in high school. I didn't know that, but I was just like, he was really sweet, but he's like one of those people that makes space for others as well.
Yeah.
And so it's like those things are important to us, no matter how small or how big they are, because somebody's reading our story. Somebody called us from that one little small interview with him, and I was just like, oh, I didn't know people read this, like, and we get followers. I don't know how we're getting followers on Instagram. We're not active, but it could be because of your magazine. I'm just like, I don't know. Every time I get on, it's like notifications, and I'm like, I don't know where they're coming from, but thank you, And so those things do matter for us because then we get new people to understand what our missions are and, how we're servicing the community in different capacities. So we appreciate that. You don't have to do it.
Oh, well, I love to hear that because, that's what I want to see. I'm really interested in hopefully giving space to people, to groups, to just good things that are happening that maybe are a little under the radar, not everybody knows about. And so hopefully it just gives you more exposure.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, followers, make some donations.
Well, I'll tell you though, when there were definitely some times early in the magazine where I was like, maybe this was a bad idea, or maybe we're not going to be able to keep doing this. When you do all that work that took to get to that first issue, and then you can't give it to people. But I'll tell you what saved us was we just started posting on Instagram. Now everybody at that time, that's when we were like pretty well locked down, and so like most people are at home, they don't have anybody to do, they're not seeing anybody, and we're like, hey, if you donate $25 in the magazine, we'll come deliver one to your house. And like we had this huge response. And so we delivered like over 100 magazines around Waco.
Oh, wow.
And it was really cool because like everybody who we went and gave one to, everybody's being like real careful because nobody knows like what is going on in the world here. But they were like so happy to see like another human being who was like there to deliver a magazine to them. And so that actually gave me a lot of encouragement and hope to go forward with it. And so like it ended up being like an awesome, first issue release. It just didn't go anything like we thought it would.
Yeah. I find that's kind of the beauty of a lot of stuff because like we never planned Black Scent. No, like that. That was never planned. It just kind of this happened, and I think that's how you know that it's kind of like a higher power at work, however people deem, but like there's something that's kind of meant to be about it if it just works out despite the fact that whatever you thought was going to happen wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And then whatever happened wasn't what you planned, but it still kind of worked out. What kind of I know you mentioned that it just gives you life aside from just your regular job and stuff like that, but like what really motivated you to kind of just like I want to start doing this stuff like pro community, because you really could have kept it more so like really just people you knew or whatever like that, like stuff that you found interesting, but you really kind of branched out and like, no, I want to include more people, I want to include all people, and just tell your stories. So what kind of motivated you on that front?
Well, I guess a couple things. So one was like, truly, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but like riding my bike around Waco, like it really just changed the way I saw things. Mm-hmm. Because it just opens you up to like the history and the people of our city that, all of us like have our regular pathways we take through the city, like the roads that we usually go down, the neighborhoods we go through, the stores we go to, all that kind of stuff. But that's like such a small part of the community. And so as I just saw like more and more of just what Waco included, I was like, I want to provide a space for more people to see those kind of things and to hear those kind of stories. And so that was a big part of it. And then I've always just been kind of interested too in like, especially with like analog, with creating spaces that are kind of unusual. I mean, I don't think there's anything else quite like analog, at least in Waco. And it maybe makes people feel a little uncomfortable even, it's just like but it allows us to kind of see each other in new ways and to have like a collective experience that maybe changes us in some way. I mean, that's like when analog's so encouraging to me because I go and I'm just like blown away by the stories that people tell. Like it's just things I would never imagine. I usually don't know what people are going to say beforehand, which is a little bit scary.
Like, go this or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
But then like everybody gets to experience that together. And so like, I love podcasts, but and people have mentioned at times like, hey, what if analog is a podcast? Something like that. And part of me is like, yeah, let's do it. Like, it'd be awesome. But the other part of me is like, I just love the experience of having to be there. The only way that you can have that experience is to be there that night when it happens, and then it's over. Yeah. And
it's kind of missed out if you didn't get to make it.
Yeah. And like everybody who was there, experienced something that was a one-time thing. Like that'll never happen that way again. Yeah. And I just think there's really something amazing about that, magical.
Yeah, and speaking from somebody who performed, I didn't think too much of it like then. I think I was like just anxious because I was so like afraid of messing up, and my mom was like, "You're gonna write something, right? Like, just gonna go up there and just like talk. Like, you're gonna have like something of a basis of what you're gonna say." I was like, "Yeah, I'll figure it out." I didn't figure it out to that day, so I was like I was really stressed out before I went up there. But no, like I think the main thing that kind of motivates the love for it and kind of just the piece of doing it is the fact that everybody's kind of there for the same goal. Nobody's really there, to nobody's there because they don't want to. I'm not going to say nobody's there because they don't want to be. Maybe some people did get dragged by a friend or a family member or whatever. But it's just like, we're all just essentially talking to each other about ourselves, and it kind of felt really freeing to just kind of let almost a bunch of strangers in on something that like kind of keep close to heart. It's kind of it's freeing, but it's also it's a little weird, a little freeing, little peaceful, a little therapeutic. Like it's a really like surreal experience, and I really like the analog event. That's why I had to ask if you were doing any more, because that was cool. I definitely want to go to another one.
Definitely we'll be doing more. The best way to keep up with us, follow the Analog Waco Instagram account, and we'll be putting information out there about when we're doing it again.
Got you. We got into your motivations a little bit. What do you do with Baylor? If I'm okay to ask.
Yeah. So I'm an assistant director of a program in the Honors College. So I do kind of a variety of things. I do advising with students. I usually teach a class each semester. I work with like just all the administrative stuff for the program, everything from like admitting students to working with our alumni, just all of that kind of thing.
So you probably took a lot of that to help you, putting together Lost in Waco and Analog. Was there stuff prior, like to this, or to like you working with Baylor that you did like in the community or stuff like that, or like this was kind of your first like break into it?
So, like 10, 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, something like that. I started a group in Waco. It was called Void Collective, and this was like my first like big kind of scary creative thing to put there out into the world and to work with other people on. And what it was focused more on like on faith matters, of questions of faith, but especially like faith and doubt and questioning. We called it a non-confessional. We called it non-confessional in that it wasn't like any particular religious confession. It was more of a kind of open, free space for questioning and exploration. But it was kind of a performance art event. So it was like an hour-long event that was a mix of like music and reading and personal storytelling and kind of visuals and art and like like ritual kind of things. Like I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like involving people into like actually do things. But it was even crazier than like Analog. It was a totally bizarre thing, but it also like caught on. We did it at the old, I don't know if you remember the old Treff's bar that was on Austin Avenue, and they had this upstairs space, and so I mean it was just this really bizarre thing, and but it was great. Like it just gave me that taste of like bringing people together around something to have this kind of experience, and I knew like I wanted to keep doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and working with others, like that's always been an important part for me. Is I'm not like a painter or a musician or a photographer really. Like I don't really consider myself an artist. I consider myself a creative person. But what I'm really interested in doing are like bringing together various kinds of people to meet, like to make something happen. So like if I have like a vision of something that I think would be a cool event or a project, like bringing people together with different skill sets to make it happen. And so like with Analog, it's inviting all these different people in to create this experience that I couldn't do just by myself. With Lost in Waco, like I can't create a whole magazine by myself. I have, there are the writers, the photographers, the people who are like subjects of the stories, like trying to bring all of that together and like see this vision become a reality. That's the thing that really gets me excited, and I feel like is something that I'm good at doing. And so like that first project, like 10, 15 years ago, that was the first time. It was super scary. Like it took me like a year to actually, start doing it. Yeah. And, but then when it started doing it, I was like, oh man, like I got to keep doing this. I love this.
Got you. Sorry, I had a question and I lost it. I hate when that happens. I was sitting there trying to hold on to it while you were talking. And I was like, I'm gonna lose it. Like I know I am. Dang it. Oh, do you have like a favorite? Not really a favorite event, or maybe just kind of favorite story, just favorite experience with everything that you've been doing. Like just maybe like a random thing that happened while you were out, lost in Waco, or just like something like
Yeah, let's see. There was a. I don't know why this one popped into my head. This was just kind of funny. I thought was I when I was riding my bike around town, the KWBU radio station, like they had interviewed me and did this little story on me, and one of the things I said in the interview was, I've been riding my bike around town for like 2 years, and I post all these photos and I have all these people following me on Instagram, but like nobody's ever stopped me while I'm riding my bike around and said like, hey, are you the guy who does Lost in Waco? And I was like, yeah, I'm just kind of surprised. And like the day that ran on the radio, I went out that evening and I was riding my bike around. I was downtown somewhere and I had stopped for a minute. Maybe I was taking a photo or something. And somebody came up to me and was like, oh, are you the guy who does Lost in Waco? And I was like, what, did you like hear it on the radio today? She's like, no. I was like, okay. And so, but yeah, that was kind of funny. But with Analog, one of the things that come, like there are just these like stories that people have told that have just stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And one of them, one of the people who works with me on Lost in Waco is Wendy Gregg. And she told a story. We did an event called The Darkest Night of the Year, and it was the winter. It was the winter solstice, the longest night of the year, the day with the most darkness. And so, and I invited people to tell stories that had something to do with like darkness. And I love it when somebody comes with like a kind of creative or different perspective
like on it.
Yeah. And so, she just talked about how like. She, she's talked about this, before, about how she deals with narcolepsy, and she has sleeping problems. She doesn't sleep well at night and different things. And so she said, sometimes at night when she just can't sleep, she would go and just walk around downtown at night and talking about how in the darkness. But just talking about how like she grew to like need that literal darkness, and how that time like, was important to her. And so like, I don't know, I mean, just like different stories that have people have told, just stick with me.
I got you.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
In a really like weird, not a weird way, because I don't want to judge it, but nah. You say that to somebody like walking around downtown, like I'm like no, I would never, yeah, stuff like that. And then you have somebody who deals with issues like that. I have a friend who struggled with narcolepsy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And and it's different for her. It's a peaceful thing to like. Weirdly enough, I kind of prefer like the night. Like I feel like the evening and like the nighttime when I thrive the most. I don't know why, but there'll be times where I like will be super tired and I just don't want to go to sleep just because I just kind of love the energy of just like night. You know?
Right.
Even though it can be super spooky, like this weird sometimes. Yeah.
There was another one, that same event. So we also do a little bit of open mic time at the events, and someone came up and I thought this one's really stuck with me too. Is he had spent some time in jail, and he talked about how when he was there was always a light on it. They never had total darkness, and how like when he got out, like to be able to actually have darkness was like so good, to not have any darkness at all, and like how hard that was, and I was like, oh man, I just never thought about that, you know. And so you
don't ever really get it. You kind of mess with your night and day, like in a big way. You really don't know the time that you know what time it is. Like you don't know what's going on. Yeah, I got you. Never thought about that either. That's a cool. That's not a cool perspective. That's a different perspective too.
Yeah.
Does you got anything?
I was gonna ask a question, but I didn't want you to lose your train of thought. So with what do you hope to? I know we kind of spoke on a little bit, but kind of with the projects that you have that have been long term. What do you hope to accomplish, or like what's your purpose overall for those things?
Yeah. Well, I hope with Lost in Waco, really just hope to continue to be able to tell more of these underground kind of stories, and hope that we can, I think my hope with it is that actually really with both of these projects is that it gives people a broader vision of what is Waco, right? So all of us, like I said, we have kind of our small worlds that we go through every day, and then we interact with mostly the same people, and that's just normal. Like that, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like the way it is. But what it can do is keep us from seeing everything else that is actually going on around us, the different kinds of people, the different kinds of things that are happening that we just don't know anything about. And so my hope with both of these projects is really that it broadens people's perspectives and mindsets of what Waco is and who Waco is, and that it's more than our any one person's individual like daily experiences. That it's bigger than that, and to like hopefully that spurs on people's curiosity to get outside of their normal ways of doing things and experience more of what's going on around town.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think I've been in Waco since like 5th grade, and I don't know, like I still find stuff that I just like never noticed before literally on the street behind this building. I don't know what street it is, but it's like a big, huge, like Freemason, like temple or something. Like I've never noticed it. Like I've never noticed it.
It was so many of them. I was like, and I've been like, I'm 30, and I'm just like, like, where did y'all come from? I saw them after you told me. I like drove around. I was just like, whoa, like y'all are fully suited and booted too. And it was so many. I was just like, this is amazing. I've never seen. I didn't even know that was like. I saw that building over there when we first started recording here, but I was just like, y'all really exist. This is not a myth.
But the other building, that kind of this monumental, like
it's like
brick,
huge.
like like I was like, what is this? Like I've never seen this building before.
It looked like a synagogue. I was just like, okay, y'all are present, very present. We see that now. But it's so cool because, like you said, you don't know, and it's like I think the thing that people. The misconception that people have about Waco is that it's nothing to do, it's nothing to see, but that's not true. I've taken some pictures in Cameron Park, and people are like, "Where is that?" And I'm like, I was in Waco. Like, I mean, it's some really, really, really beautiful places in Waco, and like you said, like that building on Elm Street, like the one that I remember every time I'm talking to people, I'm like, the one with the wheelbarrow guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was this building? And so I talked to Miss Doreen that owns, what is the Creative Arts Festival. And she told me what the building was. And I was like, I had no idea that was a theater.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like all of this history. And I'm just like, okay, like this stuff is cool. Nobody ever taught us this, but at least I'm finding out. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
just have to explore.
Yeah, and that history, like, it obviously affects who we are as a community today, and so even like understanding things like that, I think it matters. It makes a difference.
Because everybody's just like the wheelbarrow guy.
Yeah,
the building with the wheelbarrow guy. And I'm like, that's not just the building. And I didn't know that it wasn't just the building.
Well, that was, because I had so many experiences like that when I was riding my bike around Waco, of like coming across something and be like, where did this come from? And one of my favorites was actually the first time that I saw the, Ira Watkins mural that's on True Jamaica. Now, this is when the True Jamaica building was like an abandoned old restaurant. Like there was nothing there.
It was called Blues.
Okay. Yeah. There, and so like the first time I drove around, or I rode my bike around, and I saw like the back side of that building, which has like the mural of everybody like at the table eating and like their, kids playing around and all of this. And it was really faded. He's coming and touched it up in the last few years, and it looks great. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, like there is obviously like so much history behind this, and like where did this come from, and who did this mural? And so again, like I got on Google, but his name, he had written his name, Ira Watkins, and I had never heard of Ira Watkins at that time, but he's done other murals in town. And I went on Google and I was like, oh, I'll just search Ira Watkins Waco. And like the first thing that came up was an article in the New York Times where they had profiled like a number of kind of underground kind of artists in the San Francisco area. And that's where he had moved. And it was actually a community of like, some of them maybe were homeless or had been homeless, but they were artists. And there was like a photo of Ira Watkins in there with some of his art, and I was like, man, this guy's like for real, yeah. And then so like for a while, then after that, everybody I was talking to was like, hey, do you know anything about this mural and Ira Watkins? And so and since then, he's been in town, and I got to talk to him a little bit, and cool. But yeah, there's just like so much right around us that we just don't realize is there.
Yeah, one of my I don't know why I thought about this, is kind of irrelevant, but just in terms of just the history aspect of, chronicling what happens to certain things. There's this building downtown. It's literally right next to Union Hall. Matter of fact, it's the new apartment building / like Waco Running Club, like whatever they've done with those two buildings. But the building that was on the corner by the light, that building used to be run down. And, the homeless people had started, going in and living in it and stuff like that, like a full apartment building that nobody used. And during high school, it's probably still my senior year. Yeah, it's around senior year. We used to be able to like climb the ladder for the building and get to the top of it, and, take pictures on the roof and stuff. And the way that the building is set up, the alico is like right to your, like kind of angled to your left and stuff like that. And now it's like a completely, redone apartment building. You can't just climb to the top no more. And, people actually live there. It's got cleaned out and redone and everything. And it's kind of like, it's cool because, it brings, more, living opportunities and stuff like that for people. I'm pretty sure it helps with Union Hall's business, whatever. Like it's a cool thing. It's just kind of crazy because it's something that I can attest to. Like I'm like, I was here like back when that building was, run down. Nobody was doing nothing with it. It was kind of like a little monument for people in my little age group, because a lot of people knew about the building. A lot of people climbed on top of it and took pictures on it, and then now you can't do that no more. So it's kind of like a moment, that this kind of got captured and kind of went. So that's what I think about. Like when I think about Lost in Waco, it's like how you're able to, you catch something, you're just like, oh, that's interesting. And when you find out more about it, you find this whole new story that nobody probably knew about, nowadays. Yeah. And it's kind of, I like that.
Yeah, really it makes, just the other day I was scrolling through like the old photos on Lost in Waco from like 2015, 2016. And like some of the places that I take photos of, like you can't, it's either not there anymore or it's been redone or, whatever. And of course, like there's all kinds of things to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
you know, and
Don't
so,
get me started.
yeah, and
It's like it's awkward. I go to a lot of places and I'm like, okay. And you're like, well, this building was here, or this house was here, and it's all grass and dirt,
Yeah.
or something is already built on it. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. Even in Baylor, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, where'd they come from? And I don't think that we realize, like, to us, oh, you just took that picture, but it's like years have gone by and people have developed this area, and it's like, oh wow, like when did this I'm like, when did this happen?
right.
Like the whole area of I-35 in East Waco, it's where my church was,
Mm.
and it's non-existent anymore.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow. The neighborhood, I don't know how they kept the little neighborhood over there, but that's still there. But church is gone. And my church was like right in front of, I'm going to forget the name of the cemetery. How, I don't know. What is it called? Greenwood? That the cemetery that's off of I-35 that they were redoing, quote unquote. Like they put up a gate and all of that. Like that cemetery that they've been working on reconstructing and making nicer because it looked horrible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forgot what it's. Is it called? No, it's not called. That's not Oakwood. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
But they've been working on that, and that's where my church was. So it was church, cemetery, neighborhood, and I was just like, it's just so it's weird.
Yeah.
I want to say it's called Green. I don't know. I'll Google it because I'm gonna be like stumped out. Like, what is
Bother
this
her all day.
cemetery?
You driving
What
home
is
and
it
think of
called?
Yeah.
But it's just weird.
There's just like there's no like simple narrative to describe like what's going on. Like there are obviously like there are good things happening, but then there are consequences for those things, you know. And you know, the hope is that we're thinking about what those consequences are without just doing all of this without thinking about who it's affecting. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a complicated time in Waco right now with all, I mean, you drive through downtown, there's just like construction everywhere and hotels going up and all of this.
New
and
businesses. And
yeah.
everything, yeah.
And like some of this stuff, like like some new businesses that come in, I'm like, this is great. I love this, or I love this particular like brewery or, you know, whatever it might be. But it's like, but there's also this bigger thing going on that's affecting communities of people. And, you know, what do we,
it's
how
a
do
real
we do that?
bittersweet feeling.
It's a concern for me. Just, I don't know, because I work in real estate.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, these people aren't going to have anywhere to live.
Right.
And they can't afford to go anywhere where there is space to live, and it's like they're being pushed out with no options. And I think the saddest part, but that cemetery is called Greenwood, but even that whole area over there, because it's by McLean, that's where my family is from.
That's what my ass was saying,
so it's really a battle. They're always getting letters from investors. People are texting them. I don't know how they're getting their personal cell phone numbers, but they're being harassed. They're being sent letters. They're being lowball. I'll give you $40,000 for this house. And I'm like, that's not even the appraisal amount. Yeah. And so it's kind of sad because you think about it. Everybody's like, oh, there's going to be things to do in Waco. And it's like, but everything comes with a cost.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if you don't already own your home, or if you're not established, it's going to be hard for people. Like you said, it's great, but what about the long-term effects? You're going to have so many citizens that are displaced because they can't afford somewhere to live. So then the homelessness rate is going to go up. Yeah. And there's no, like, they already don't have space for a lot of the people that are homeless.
Right.
And I've asked people, like, you know, what are the alternatives? Well, they can only be at the shelter this amount of time. And I'm like, they can only stay with you, I think they tell me, so many days out of the year. And I'm like,
insane.
So y'all don't want them on the streets. You don't give them a place to stay. Like there's no resolve. And I think that's one of the larger issues that we're going to have in Waco, is a problem that already is a problem is going to be potentially worse within the next 5 years. And people don't see that rent. People are already complaining. Yeah. I'm used to it because I left home when I was 18, and I lived in, I've been in DFW predominantly since, you know, I've been an adult. So most of my adult life is things cost money. Yeah. But everybody doesn't have that mindset that I have. And so to take people who are used to paying $700 rent and make them pay $1,300 a month, They're like, what is
Yeah,
this?
it's just
Yeah.
gone up so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the tax rates.
Right.
Everybody, they can afford it if they budget well.
Right.
I'm not going to make excuses for people, but everybody does not understand how taxes work. And a lot of them stress because they think that they have to pay everything at once.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, there's
Sure.
ways that you can pay it at a pace
Yeah.
because they're always being conditioned to think lump sum. And if you don't pay this, I'm kicking you out of your house, even though that's your property and it's already paid off. So I don't know. I'm like you. There's a lot of things to consider. Like, it's great with all of these people coming, but if the jobs aren't paying, then it doesn't matter because the economy is not going to be good anyway because the people can afford what rent or mortgage rates there are because the companies aren't paying the money. Because minimum wage is still $7.25. I just don't.
No, I mean,
I could never.
It's just another example of why we need this broader, bigger vision of the city, because if all we're thinking about are like ourselves and the people we know, we can think like, well, it's it's not really affecting me, and it's costing me a little bit more, but I'm okay. I can do this, I'm glad that we're having these new things and everything, but it's like, there are so many other people who maybe are being impacted more than myself.
That you don't know.
And so hopefully, I mean, I know it's like the magazine, Analog, these are like small things, right? But I think they matter, and if you start to see like a bigger picture of the city, perhaps, then maybe it helps you to see these kind of issues in a different way.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just, there are people and communities and things going on just like outside of my world. And I need to pay attention to that and think about that.
Right.
And there aren't easy solutions to these problems.
No.
But maybe we can at least, acknowledge them and
Get the
try and work
conversations
together.
going.
Yeah, I think that people don't understand either. Although you're okay, it's still going to affect you eventually because the people that are losing, there's going to increase the crime rates.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to be stealing and burglarizing. Like, everything is going to affect everything. But I don't think that people see it that way because, like you said, they live in their own world. But I'm just like, somebody about to be in your bushes.
Yeah, just waiting
Like,
for you to walk outside the house.
it's because at the end of the day, people, like, the way we're wired is survival, and it's sad, but it's true. And it's like, you're okay until those people that are displaced start to be like, well, you still have what you have.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take what you have.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people look at that on a broader scope. Like, yeah, you're good for now,
Yeah.
but then when it's too many incidents happening and too many calls going into the same operator for the same police station, and there's no people to dispatch to all of these different things, then what? And I think that's the bigger picture is what are y'all gonna do in the next 5 to 10 years when, not that the city doesn't deserve and should not grow, I firmly believe that, but I feel like there's a lot of things that could be
Done better.
yes
Yeah.
better handled, because it is going to start to affect everything, because everything is like an ecosystem, and I don't think people remember that when they're doing things.
Yeah, everything affects everybody.
Yeah.
We're all, it is a ecosystem, like you said.
Yeah, I had first brought it up. I thought about how many people have been like documented to move, to have been documented to move to Texas. Like so many people from California and
They need
stuff
to
like
stay.
that. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I will tell you, I'm originally from California.
But
one of my best friends is too. But y'all
You
got here
came-
early enough.
I was about to
Okay,
say,
all right.
you came when we were children.
Yeah,
That makes a
it's
difference.
fine. Yeah, when you said you were here in 1998, I was like, let's take it. I was born. I wasn't even in Waco yet. But that is.
I consider you a Wacoan at this point. I didn't know that you had been here that long.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, no, it's I think it's the influx of people migrating here, and then the tax rates and inflation and all of that. Like, it's all, I'm just like, please stop coming to Texas.
Well, it's easy for people like that too. I mean, obviously we're like generalizing. It's not everybody, but like people who come in and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this great thing for this place that they don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And not everybody does that, but it's easy to do, and that doesn't, that certainly doesn't help matters.
It just feels like, did anybody ask us if we wanted them here? And it's like, thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
I feel bad for a lot of people, especially in lower income neighborhoods, because I know that they're planning to tear Kate Ross down already. And it's like those places that are like government assistance or Section 8, whatever it is, whatever it's called, I don't know. Section 8 housing and things like that. Like when they tear those places down, then where do they send them?
Right.
And not that those are the best places. I'm not going to sit and say, but it's still somebody's home. And a lot of those people that live there are older people that have been there for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you uproot them with no solution? So I don't know. Maybe it's just questions we need to. Do they stream the city council meeting? Look,
I think
just
so.
Drop some comments.
Yeah.
So what are y'all gonna do about this?
Homeless problem, yeah.
Well,
and what about this?
I think one of the things getting involved in the city over the last several years, like I have gotten to know different people in leadership and so on, and I am glad that other people are having these conversations and talking about how do we think through the best way for development to happen and so on, and that's good. Like I have been encouraged that people are talking about some of the right things. The problem is that obviously, like the way our world works is, the people with the money, they kind of have the power, and the people without it don't. And so it is, even if there are people with good intentions,
right,
it can be really hard to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And again, like doing the right thing is not simple also. And so, yeah, it's just a really tough scenario. But I am encouraged that there are people who are pushing some of these conversations and asking some of the right questions, and hopefully they're smarter people than me who can figure these things out.
Right.
I'm not gonna say it'd be impossible, but it'd be cool if if y'all could do like an analog event one day with homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know it'd be super hard to coordinate. Like, how do you track down these homeless people and then show up to this event on this day? It'd be super hard. But I feel like that'd be there's something, anything like that. I feel like that'd be a super powerful just move. Like, hey, like here goes some people who are legit on these streets and they're gonna talk to you about what's going on. Like,
Well, that is the kind of thing I'm interested in. Where like, if I get to know someone who's a part of whatever kind of community, and, then having them as like that guest host is like, okay, now you can open up that world to me, because I don't know those people, but I can help create this event where they can, create that space where they can tell some of their stories. And so that is something I'm very interested in, is like, different, as I get to know different kinds of people around town, a part of different kinds of communities. And then they can decide like, oh, what would be a good theme for us to talk about, and they can invite people, and so I do want to do some of that in the future. I think there's just a lot of value to it.
So, got you. Always keep us in mind. If you.
I was about to say that would be a good opportunity for like us to volunteer, because I would think that would be a great opportunity for us to do like community outreach and like give back, give them food or something. Because I think that would be the best way. Hey, you get to be somewhere warm, you get a meal, just come tell your story. And I think that's important, because I think one of the misconceptions is that homeless people choose to be homeless, and I don't think that's true at all.
Why do you choose that?
Like, I don't think that's true. A lot of them don't. Now, there are some of them who like, it's easier. I've heard people say it. But a lot of them, like I said, they're displaced. They don't have the money. Wow. They don't have the money to pay the car note that they were, the car they were sleeping in. So the car gets taken. Yeah. So when your car is taken, where else do you go? You don't have anywhere else to go. Yeah. And I think that it's important that people hear their stories, because nobody ever gives them the opportunity to tell, the why, the how. And a lot of them are really sweet people.
Yeah.
And they're not seen that way. So I think that would be really cool.
I'll tell you, one of the things that was influential for me I came to Waco to go to Baylor in 1998, and my very first Sunday that I was in Waco, my roommate was like, hey, I heard about this thing. We should go to church at Church Under the Bridge. And so I went there my very first Sunday, and then went there for the next, 2 years especially. And it had a huge influence on me, being just sitting under the bridge with all kinds of different people, and I got involved some with Mission Waco at that time. And those things were really influential. It just exposed me to a world that, I hadn't been exposed to before. And it was important for me.
No, I was gonna plug Jeremy because I was like, Jeremy in Mentor Waco goes down to the hangar every Sunday,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and that'd be the first people I think of to like ask like, hey, like like
Yeah.
can we start talking about doing something like that? But no, that'd be dope.
Because
To do something like that.
they do food and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally every
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
It might not be. I think it's every Sunday, if
Mm.
I'm not mistaken. That same. I'm pretty sure it's the same place. It's like under the bridge. They call it the hangar and have a little garden area, stuff like that. Like it's just a little. I wish people built that up more. Like I wish that was more of a normalized like thing that we knew about it. Like it'd be cool to have something out there for the homeless people, and like they did have a garden, but it kind of just died out just because nobody was really able to take care of it and stuff like that. And Jeremy was telling me how like there's been times where the police will literally come out there and clear all the homeless people out, and it's like it's under the bridge. Like what are they hurting,
Yeah.
But we'll talk all day if we just keep going. Yeah. You did mention,
Oh.
Yeah. You got anything else? Plug yourself. Shout out your handles and stuff like that.
So I'm on Instagram personally at Adam D Moore, and you can follow Lost in Waco, on Instagram, Analog Waco on Instagram. If you are someone who's interested in being a part of any of these projects, like would love for you to reach out to me. You can connect with me on Instagram or email me. My email address, which my email address shows I'm a Wacoan too. So my email address is adam.waco at gmail.com. So I guess whenever I decided to make my email address Waco, I was like, okay, I'm here now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, reach out to me. I'm always looking for people to get involved with these projects.
That's you. Yeah, appreciate you again for coming on.
Hey, thank you.
And
love what you guys are doing as well. So
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's nice. It's fun.
No, I don't have anything else.
All right,
I think
cool.
that's it.
I bet. As always, I'm De'Viar.
And I'm Jasmine. We can be found on Instagram at Stories of the Streets _ Facebook Stories of the Streets, and we can be emailed at storiesofthethastreets@gmail.com.
Thank you.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.